So you've got all these synthetic hormones floating around in your system. Your body's like, this is awesome, supposedly. I feel great, supposedly. Everything's fine, supposedly. And then you're like, all right, party's over. Flip the switch, time to go back to normal. And from a biological perspective, your body's like, oh my God, we haven't been procreating. We need to get this show on the road.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host and health coach, Jen Trepic, here with you every week. And this week is part 2 of our birth control series. So last week with Mike Gaskins, we talked about how hormonal birth control was passed by the FDA, the limitations of the research, and what's been publicized about it, its true side effects as we see people who are on it for longer and longer. And then we touched on the disease states that people are experiencing as a result of being on hormonal birth control or really oral contraceptives. So if you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend you do. Even if that's after today's listen, I think the bottom line is that we're supposed to give practitioners informed consent for protocols, right? For our healthcare. And I think the bottom line of last week's conversation is that most of us don't feel like we were fully informed. So maybe now you want to make a different choice. So that's what today is all about. Today, we're talking about how to get off of hormonal birth control. And statistically speaking, it is safe to say that you or someone you know is on the pill or some version of hormonal birth control. I want to say the stats I saw were something like, as of like 2017 to 2019, it was something like 60% of women aged 15 to 49 are on some form of hormonal birth control. So odds are this applies to most people and to all the parents out there with young kids. Like, let's talk about this now. Let's go into these conversations for their health with better information. Okay, so I digress. So to help us through this conversation of how to make our way off of hormonal birth control, I have another incredible guest for you. So inspired by her personal health journey, she's a holistic nutritionist, women's health, hormone, and fertility specialist, integrative nutrition health coach, and corporate wellness consultant. Her practice started by helping women heal their bodies from the inside out through lifestyle advice and healthy recipes, and it has grown into an integrative health coaching practice that allows her to serve women and help them achieve their greatest health. She wants to help you feel amazing, love your body, and create sustainable, healthy habits to maintain your results for life. So you get why we vibe, right? She lives in Phoenix, or in the Phoenix area, with her incredible husband, her high school sweetheart, and their 2 little kitties. She loves her Peloton, traveling, trying new recipes, and you may even catch her binging anime. I know. Amazing. So I'm lucky enough to call her not only a colleague, but a friend. So please help me welcome Rach Hoeppner.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much for that warm welcome. I am so excited to be here. You know that I love you. I'm so grateful that we are friends and the internet has brought us together. And we get to talk about one of my favorite topics in the world around women's hormones. So yeah, I cannot wait to get into it. This is going to be a blast.
I know. I'm so excited. Rach, this is like your official welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. Amazing. Oh. It only took a few years, right? But we're here, and I'm going to start with your story. But so that I don't have to interrupt our flow, we'll first tell our members what they're getting, and then we'll do your story. Okay, so members, your recipe this week. Oh, I'm so smart. I made it so fitting for today's topic. So your recipe, and literally this is the name of it. It is for seriously delicious detox salad. I know, it's funny, but like so fitting for today. Think like rainbow of vegetables, the most delicious ginger carrot dressing. So you get the recipe for the dressing too. It's like a twofer, right? So if you want this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It really is a deal and a steal when you take advantage of that full offering. You're going to save far more than that $10 cost. I say it every time, but it's really a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, your membership supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue to do this with you every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes because that's easier. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the seriously delicious detox salad with the ginger carrot dressing. Okay, Rach, you gave the recipe a thumbs up.
That sounds delicious. I'm like, I need that recipe. I need to make sure that I am subscribed as a member of this show.
Awesome. Would love to have you. So, okay, share your story because, first of all, like so many of us, we come to this through our own process, right, of dealing with ourselves and then wanting to pay it forward. And similar to me, you started your practice on the side of your full-time job. But tell us what led you to become, a holistic nutritionist.
Yeah. So my story starts way, way back when I was 15 years old. And I went to the gynecologist with my mom because I was suffering from irregular periods and some mild acne. And as a 15-year-old girl, having acne was like embarrassing. And I wanted to have that regular period that you saw in movies or, on like in magazines. Social media wasn't, what it is now, but something seemed off. I was only getting my period like once every 4 to 6 months. And my mom takes me to the gynecologist. They do a very uncomfortable pelvic exam. And I leave with a prescription for hormonal birth control. I was not sexually active, but I was told this is going to fix your problems. It's going to regulate your cycle. It's going to get rid of your acne. The rest of your life is going to be a breeze. So I start taking it. And initially I was like, this is awesome. I was getting, I'll use air quotes here, everybody, a quote unquote period every month. And that seemed like a win because I was not having a regular bleed. Over the next 5 years of my life, I became more and more ill. And I tell you this because I did not have any immediate negative side effects to birth control. I didn't get immediate migraines. I didn't get immediate like insane mood swings. I didn't have any like immediate issues with my quote unquote period because some women experience like an instant reaction of like birth control made me crazy. So I immediately went off of it. Mine was a slow degradation of my health. So my acne became very, very severe. I had cystic acne that covered about 60% of my face. I started having migraines. I started having panic attacks and severe anxiety. And I ended up developing a binge eating disorder because I was gaining a lot of weight, and weight makes you want to diet, especially as a young woman. I was a freshman in college at the time. And that led me to have a very strained and difficult relationship with food. And it seemed like every time I went to the doctor, I was given another medication. I was then put on medication for migraines, put on medication for acne. I was put on spironolactone. I was given antibiotics, topicals, all of the things. I was put on medication for hypothyroidism. I was put on medication for my mental health or lack thereof. And then I was put on sleeping pills because my medication for my antidepressants meant that I couldn't sleep and I was dealing with insomnia. So by the time I was 23, I was on 6 different medications and I felt awful. I just felt terrible all the time. And I remember going to doctors and being like, well, like, what is causing this? Like, why am I so sick? And these medications aren't making me better. And I felt like I was just getting doors closed in my face. And no doctor ever questioned my hormonal birth control, ever. That was never the problem. I was, oh, maybe that's the wrong one, so let's try a different one. Maybe that one's not working. Let's try this.
Maybe it's not working. Mm-hmm. Like the thing that it was designed to do of, disrupting your hormonal cycle. Like, no, that is actually working. In fact, It's doing everything it was designed to do.
No, you're spot on. And again, I did not know that. And I also don't think my mom knew that. So granted, I was 15. So I was not making any type of consent to begin with. My mom was the one signing off and giving consent for this medication. Neither of us were informed. So when I was 23 and feeling like garbage, I decided to take matters into my own hands. And so I seeked out my first naturopathic doctor. I was still in college and I had very little money, but I was like, I need to do something different here. And so I remember seeing my first naturopathic doctor and starting to read and consume as much information as I possibly could. And this set me on a trajectory, multi-year journey to figure out, okay, like, let me try this. Does it work? Do I feel better? Try this. Does it work? Do I feel better? Maybe this is making me better. Maybe it's making me worse. I actually went to school originally for business. Yeah, was not planning to get into health at all. But by the time I was a couple years into this journey, I was like, okay, like I think I need more than Google can piece together for me. So I went back to school to become a nutritionist. And it was very selfish. Like, I will be honest with you. My goal was to heal myself because I hated the way that I looked and felt. And once I started turning over the right stones and finding the right pieces of my puzzle, and I detoxed from hormonal birth control, I finally got diagnosed with PCOS. I was able to heal my thyroid, clear my skin, get off my antidepressants, get off my sleeping pills, off my migraine medication. And then guess what? Shocker, I started losing weight without really even trying. Like, weight loss was not even a goal at the time. I just didn't want to feel awful. But weight loss started happening as a side effect of healing my body. And then people started asking me, well, like, what are you doing? I'm having that same issue. This didn't work for me. Like, what should I try instead? So I started Real Health with Rach in 2019 after I had been on my personal journey since 2013. And I started serving other women the way that I wish I had been served. So in my practice, I do functional lab testing. I help women to detox from hormonal birth control, help to optimize nutrition and lifestyle and supplementation around optimal hormone health. So I specialize in hormone dysfunction. I specialize in fertility or women struggling with fertility, as well as pregnancy and postpartum care, thinking about like that life cycle of women's hormones, as well as women who are in their 40s and 50s that are transitioning into menopause because they don't get any care either. I think one of my biggest takeaways, Jen, is that women are terribly underserved and highly over-medicated. And all medication does is work to mask symptoms. And that was my story, that it was not fixing any issue that I was having. It was simply trying to mask symptoms. And it became a game of whack-a-mole of, well, now you need medication 2 because of side effects from medication 1. And it's that downward spiral that did not lead me anywhere positive or healthy.
Yeah. And it's, first of all, I love your story because even like you were saying, people started to ask you because it is unfortunately all too common. It is what is happening for most of us, you know, and it goes back to we can ask questions, but the answer provided are limited. And so it's about finding people and resources who have different tools in their tool belt, right? Who have different information, you know. So we're going to focus today on getting off of hormonal birth control. But I think an important piece is for everybody to understand, and this was actually missing from our conversation last week with Mike, you know, because we were talking more about what happened around birth control being passed by the FDA and then the Nelson pill hearings a few years later. Then now, like 50 years after the Nelson pill hearings, we have the instance of disease for a ton of, you know, sickness, illness, disease symptoms that are dramatically higher in women than in men. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about some of those, but we didn't necessarily get into what exactly the hormonal birth control is doing that then creates all of the things that you experienced and a lot of things that you didn't even experience. So can you walk us through, like, what is hormonal birth control actually doing? Even though our doctors say it's balancing, in air quotes, it is not balancing at all.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let me try to give the Reader's Digest here so I don't go on an hour-long tangent. I think the most important thing for you to remember is that our biological incentive here, our directive, is procreation. So your menstrual cycle is designed for the sole purpose of perpetuating the human race, which means the most important thing to happen during your cycle is ovulation. Because in order to get pregnant, you need to ovulate and become inseminated. Hormonal birth control, its sole purpose is to turn that off so that you do not become pregnant. So here's how hormonal birth control works. You make naturally occurring hormones. And then when you take hormonal birth control, this can be the pill, IUD, ring, the shot, it does not matter. It works by delivering a dose of synthetic hormones that are stronger than your naturally occurring hormones. So it overrides the signals between your brain and your ovaries to turn ovulation off. And I'm a big proponent of branding. Anybody, if you are a business owner, if you know anything about branding, it's really important. Do not forget that medication and pharmaceutical companies spend billions and billions of dollars on marketing because birth control is a buzzword. You don't want to get pregnant. Here is a way to control potential birth. I like to remind women that hormonal birth control is actually medicated menopause. And if it was labeled that way, I do not think people would take it as willingly. Because think about it. Once you start menstruating, the only times in your life that you will not ovulate anymore is when you are pregnant or when you are in menopause. And so if you look at the chart of women's hormones over the course of a month, a naturally cycling woman has these beautiful curves where we see estrogen peaking and progesterone peaking and FSH and LH, and it's this beautiful dance that your body does every month. And if you look at the hormones of a woman on birth control, it is a flat line. Women in menopause also have a flat line. So you are entering a medicated menopause state because you are not ovulating. And ovulation is the most important thing to happen in your cycle. And without ovulation, you don't have a period. So when you are using hormonal birth control, typically the pill, which has placebo pills at the end of a pack, all you experience is a withdrawal bleed from the lack of hormones for those days, which was medically engineered because women in early trials of birth control gave feedback that not bleeding at all made them worried that they were pregnant. Because if you're pregnant, you don't have a period. So engineering in a withdrawal bleed gave women a visual reminder that they were not pregnant when they could not have become pregnant because they did not ovulate. And again, this is what I did not know. I thought my period was quote unquote regular and my hormones were balanced because I was bleeding consistently every month. But I was not ovulating, which means I did not have a cycle. I did not have a period. And my hormones were quite literally the opposite of balanced. They were flatlined. My hormones were dead. The connection between my brain and my ovaries had been severed. And I think that, looking back, if my mom would have been educated in a different way than was just, oh, this is all your daughter needs. Don't worry about it. It's safe. It's effective. Maybe we would have made a different decision. My hormones were never tested at 15. I never had any testing done before being given a prescription. The only on-label use for birth control is the prevention of pregnancy. So if you have been prescribed birth control for any reason other than that, it is an off-label use. Irregular periods, acne, PMDD, terrible cramping, whatever it is, whatever symptom you're dealing with, that is an off-label use of birth control. And they think that part of the reason birth control works for that is because whatever hormonal imbalance you were experiencing, if your peaks or your valleys were too high or too low, it is artificially removing the equation of your natural cycle. And a few side effects that are not broadly shared, that I think is not talked about on purpose, is my mom was told that birth control put a pin in my fertility. That whenever I was ready to get pregnant, and Jen knows I do not want kids, but whenever I was ready to get pregnant, I could just come off the pill and my fertility would start back up and everything would be hunky-dory. And we know now that extended use of hormonal birth control has the ability to shrink your ovaries by up to 50%. And the size of your ovaries has a direct correlation to your number of fertile years. So we are seeing women go into menopause far earlier. I have clients in their late 30s that are already in menopause. And a factor that is common between them is extended use of hormonal birth control, saying, anywhere 5-10 years or more. That is not normal. Women should not be going into menopause in their 30s. We should be seeing it in mid to late 40s. But that size of your ovaries matters. Birth control also causes vitamin and mineral deficiencies. It wreaks havoc on your gut, which means your ability to absorb vitamins and minerals is reduced. You can start having digestive issues, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. People that have autoimmune conditions like celiac are at an increased risk, even more so, of vitamin and mineral deficiencies. It can change mate selection, which is something I think being talked about more and more now because we emit pheromones. Do not forget that we are mammals. We'd like to think we are very advanced, but we are mammals. And we have sensory connections to other mammals in the form of pheromones. And when you are ovulating, you are giving off attractive, come at me pheromones. And when those have been removed, your ability to select an ideal mate is reduced. So there are women who are choosing their partner when they're on birth control. Then they come off of birth control and their partner smells bad to them, or they don't find them attractive anymore, or they think the issue is their libido when the issue might actually be partner selection. And that's a very primitive biological response that has been turned off. So there is a lot that happens internally. Some women tell me, Rach, I don't have any side effects from birth control. Not the way that you did, not the migraines, severe acne, panic attacks, weight gain. I feel fine. And I remind them whether or not you have visible side effects that you can see or feel, there is internal damage being done to your body. And to your point about informed consent, this is not the conversation that was had with me or my mom, or I'd say 99% of women choosing this medication, because that's what we really need to know. That hormonal birth control works by shutting down ovulation, which is why you do not become pregnant, but that induces a state of medicated menopause because your hormones are no longer naturally cycling. And that can go on for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. But then what we start to see is think about your body like a car. If your car sat in the garage and it was never started for 10 consecutive years, what do you think the odds are of it starting when you're like, all right, I'm ready to go to the store. Let's get this show on the road. Do you think your car is going to start after having not been maintained or driven for 10 years? No. So then what happens? Women come off the pill. They're like, okay, when you're ready to get pregnant, come off the pill. You're good to go. Then they don't get pregnant. Then they go to their doctor and they're immediately referred to a fertility clinic and prescribed more medication and synthetic hormones. And nobody's getting to the root cause of, what is going on here that's leading to these problems? So I'm going to cut myself off here, Jen, because I could go for 10 more hours on that.
I'm letting you go because this is exactly the conversation that we want to have, right? And we talked about it last week too, that because of the internal disruption, the snowball effect, and the longer people are on it, the snowball effect, first of all, becomes more dramatic, but it's also, to me, less likely that we connect it to this thing because it feels like the symptom is new and the birth control isn't. So it's even harder for us to draw those connections sometimes. So let's say between all of that, right, and last week's conversation, I could picture some people going, I'm done, right? I don't want this in my system anymore. And we go cold turkey. Admittedly, I sort of went cold turkey. I've done it a few times in my life, actually. I've gone on and off of hormonal birth control. The last time was about a year ago, coming up on a year ago. And we don't recommend that somebody go cold turkey. Talk to us about why that's not our best approach.
Yeah. So if you think about the way medications in general work, they typically build up in your system. Your system becomes accustomed to it. That becomes your new quote unquote normal. So to your point, Jen, you're right. We have a recency bias in medicine. That's like, when did this symptom start? What changed when the symptom started? They're not looking at a medication you started a year ago or 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. So that was my experience. It's not like the month after I went on birth control, I got a face full of cystic acne. It was a slow decline. So the recency bias was like, what have you done? I'll change your face wash, like BS like that. Well, if you think about the way withdrawals work, and I will use painkillers here as an example. If you've ever known somebody who has had a type of addiction, so alcohol, substance abuse, whatever that looks like, there is a period of withdrawals as they detox from whatever substance they might be addicted to. We do not correlate that experience to an experience women have detoxing from a non-psychedelic, non-stimulant, non-narcotic medication. But your body has become accustomed to it. So you've got all these synthetic hormones floating around in your system. Your body's like, this is awesome, supposedly. I feel great, supposedly. Everything's fine, supposedly. And then you're like, all right, party's over. Flip the switch. Time to go back to normal. And from a biological perspective, your body's like, oh my God, we haven't been procreating. We need to get this show on the road. So then you have a dump of naturally occurring hormones trying to restart your cycle. Well, your cup was already overfloweth with synthetic hormones. And now we've just turned the faucet on and let all of these natural hormones flow into that cup too. And your bathroom is flooding. And this can lead to a condition called post-birth control syndrome, where you start having potentially severe side effects. You could gain 30 pounds in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. You could start having migraines if you didn't have them before. You may experience hot flashes or night sweats. You could have acne, maybe if you didn't have acne before. As soon as you get that period, it could be very heavy, very painful, or your period could be missing altogether. If you had any type of libido on birth control, which most women either see a suppression or absence of libido, your libido might not come back. You might feel really cranky, have anxiety or depressive symptoms. And let's say you go to the doctor. They're going to say, well, what changed? And you're going to say, well, I came off my birth control last month. And they're going to say, okay, why don't you just go back on it? Mm-hmm. The number one recommendation for women experiencing post-birth control syndrome is to go back on the birth control. And that was my experience. The very first time I tried to detox from hormonal birth control many, many moons ago, I think that was end of college, I started having symptoms of post-birth control syndrome, went to my doctor. She's like, well, do you want to become pregnant? I said no. And she's like, then just go back on it. And I ended up back on it for a few more years. And so that is, I want you to understand how it works, that you build up a storage of synthetic hormones while you use hormonal birth control. And then your body starts dumping naturally occurring hormones into that same pool, and it throws your hormones into chaos. And that's where women just end up back on the pill or IUD or shot or ring, because the symptoms can be severe and they don't actually care enough to investigate and help you to balance your hormones naturally and get your cycle back to a regular rhythm.
And it's so interesting too, because a lot of the symptoms that right, like the weight gain, the irregular periods, the skin issues, all the same symptoms as when people were put on it. So it's incredibly confusing, the mood stuff too. And I think the amenorrhea that is so likely, which is basically the loss of a menstrual cycle after coming off of birth control, like we're taught, okay, just stop taking it and you'll be fine. But it can take an extremely long time for your cycle to come back.
Yeah, it can. Well, and so let's talk about the way that your body protects you and your essential organs from an overflow of hormones. So if you think about your body's defense mechanisms, the primary way that your body protects your brain, your heart, and your lungs from toxins of any kind is to store them in fat cells. So view your body's fat cells as storage containers. When your liver, we haven't even gotten to liver. We'll get there. I mean, again, that could be a whole other podcast.
I know.
When your liver is overcapacity on what it can handle. Think about environmental toxins, medication, alcohol, pesticides and herbicides in your food, anything in your self-care products. When it is overflowing with things it needs to detoxify from, it can't let excess toxins into your bloodstream because they would get into your heart, into your lungs, into your brain. So it diverts them into fat storage. And your fat cells look like balloons that have never been blown up before. And as your body needs to use them, it starts blowing those balloons up. They increase in size and they are storing all of the things that your body doesn't have anywhere else to put. And it's like, I'll come back to that later. It is well intended. I promise you that. But when you're saying, why the F can I not lose weight? Your goal of I want to lose weight is in direct opposition with your body's goal that is I need to protect you from what is stored in these fat cells. So when you stop using hormonal birth control, your body's like, wait, where'd those synthetic hormones go? It seems like you want those. Let's start releasing synthetic hormones from your body's own fat cells, which gives a prolonged effect from the birth control because your body thought that's what you wanted. It's trying to make up the difference of like, oh, Rachel was taking this medication for so long, whatever happened that it's not available anymore, we'll try to keep it going. But then your ovaries are also like, holy shit, it's go time. And they start, being able to get your cycle going for the sake of reproduction. And now you've got synthetic estrogen and your naturally occurring estrogen and your body's like, I don't know what to do. Please help. And we typically don't help because we don't know how to help. And women either end up with two avenues. Their doctor either says, well, if you don't want to get pregnant, go on birth control again. Or if you want to get pregnant, just give it some time. Try to get pregnant naturally for 6 months. And if you can't, we'll just send you over to a fertility clinic.
I just can't. I'm like, yes, exactly. Okay. So I think it's fair to say that for people who have decided now they no longer want to be on hormonal birth control, we also know that it is not in our best interest to cold turkey. And it's probably also not going to serve us to go back to the doctor to tell them what's going on because their inclination is going to be to put us back on birth control. So we'll shift into getting to the liver, how to remove all these synthetic hormones in the healthiest way. Okay, so we'll do this after a quick break. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, friends, if you are a fan of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast and looking for how you can support us, we've got you covered with our awesome merchandise. From things that you'll wear, like the V-neck tee and the crew neck tee, leggings, joggers, and things you'll use, like a yoga mat, and the water bottles, and the luggage tag. We've got things perfect for your grocery run, like the case for your AirPods. That's what it's called, right? The tote bag, so that you don't need the plastic grocery bags or the paper. We have all of the perfect gear to show off your love for our podcast. More importantly, you get to share if you are Team Salad or Team Fries. So head over to our website, asaladwithasideoffries.com/merch. Browse through the full selection. We've already had our first item go out of stock. Don't worry, it's back now, but jump on it before more things are gone. We'll always try to keep, checking on that for you all. So snag the official Salad with a Side of Fries mug, perfect for sipping your favorite brew while enjoying the latest episode. Or go with the portable Bluetooth speaker and the earbud case, perfect accessories for the podcast fan, right? Now you can take a piece of the podcast with you wherever you go. Maybe these are your best anchors to remind yourself of your commitment to your health. So simply text the word fries, FRIES, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link right to your phone. Check out all this Salad with a Side of Fries merch. Your purchase supports all the work we do here, shows your podcast pride, and maybe it sparks a conversation for you to pay it forward and inspire someone else to take charge of their health too. So again, text the word fries, FRIES, to 844-947-4846. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Yay. Thanks, Rach, right? Isn't it fun?
Yeah,
I know.
Love it.
Okay. So preface this whole thing by saying, Rach, you have a course called Better Than Birth Control that is a self-directed course to help people step-by-step through this process.
Yes.
For today, we're going to give people a few places to start and a bit of like the roadmap, right? So walk us through where we're starting, like our first step.
Yeah. So I'll start with the women who are listening who are still using hormonal birth control. I want you to know that if you stay on birth control 1 more month, 2 more months, 3 more months, your life is not going to end. So I see people that are like, oh my God, Rach, I need to get off birth control tomorrow. What the F is going on in my body? I'm freaking out. It is going to be okay. I can promise you that. Ideally, if you are still on birth control, I would actually have you start working on things now. Get your body prepared for the transition ahead. If you've already stopped birth control and you are experiencing some of the symptoms we talked about, you can start right now. You can start right away. So the first thing I like to talk about is you need to have a plan to prevent pregnancy without synthetic hormones. This was a huge reason why I stayed on birth control as long as I did. Even when I knew it might be responsible for my symptoms, I was deathly afraid of becoming pregnant. I do not want children. I didn't know how my body worked. We don't get the sex ed we actually need as women. So you need a strategy in place to avoid pregnancy. It's important to know you can only get pregnant a total of 6 days per month. So when you ovulate, ovulation is a 24-hour window. That's it. Eggs dissolve after 24 hours. Sperm can live up to 5 days. So the 5 days leading up to ovulation and the day that you ovulate are the only days that you can get pregnant, which means the majority of the month, you cannot get pregnant even if you try. And that was something that once I realized it, I was like, okay, I can do this. My husband and I have now been using non-hormonal birth control for 5 years, and we've had a 100% success rate because I know how my body works. Maybe you want to become pregnant. Maybe that's your goal this year. And again, knowing when you can become pregnant is very important to that end. So now that that's out of the way, reminder, if you have unprotected sex, you can become pregnant. A little disclosure there. Please do not flood my DMs with a bunch of salad with a side of fries babies. I want to make sure that I point that out.
If you need, you could buy them the bib. Okay, sorry.
Oh my gosh. So there are a few things that need to happen to either prepare your body to come off birth control or support your birth control detox if you've already come off of it. One is you have to love on your systems of detoxification, your organs that support detoxification.
Liver.
Think about your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, your gut, every part of your body that is responsible for pulling out the garbage and disposing of it. Because birth control stops those systems up. Because we're typically on birth control, we're probably using over-the-counter pain medication. We might be eating food that has toxins in it. You might have toxic skincare or cleaning supplies. You live in America. There are toxins everywhere that you go. We get exposed to more toxins in 1 year than our grandparents did in their entire lifetime. So we're starting at a disadvantage. So loving on your pathways of detoxification is very, very important. If you don't even know what I'm talking about or how to start supporting that, I have a freebie download on supporting your pathways of detoxification naturally. I can give you the link to that, Jen, or you can go over and find it in my link in bio on my Instagram of ways that you can start loving on those pathways. This is also where supplementation can be really effective. I do not know you individually yet, so I'm not going to make any supplementation recommendations here, but that's a huge benefit of either working with a provider or one of the things I do in my course, Better Than Birth Control, is a supplementation consultation with you of, hey, what medications are you on? What's your history? What's going to benefit you the most?
Yep. We also just want to throw it out there. We have an episode from January of 2020 that is detox focused and sort of a specialized, more intensive, like 7-day detox. And then we also did an episode of the body's natural detoxification pathways, like in the last year. I can't remember exactly when, but tons of resources for people on that.
Love it. I love it. The other thing that's really important to do is you have to repair the systems that are damaged by birth control and replace vitamins and minerals that you have become depleted in. So birth control causes vitamins and mineral deficiencies, and it wreaks havoc on your gut. And if you didn't know, your hormones are made in your gut, along with your neurotransmitters. So if your gut is dysfunctional, which if you were using hormonal birth control in any form, and I remind people, it does not need to be oral contraceptive. We have gut damage from IUDs, gut damage from rings, gut damage from shots. It's really important to love on and heal your gut to ensure that your body can make her natural hormones again. Remember, your car has been parked in a garage. It has not been started in a very long time. So we need to replace the oil. We probably need to replace the battery. There might be fuses or spark plugs that have died. We have to go in and do the repair of our body's engine so that the car will start. Because the goal is to get your reproductive cycle going as quickly as possible. And then helping your body to regulate your cycle. So how do we get your cycle to come back? I troubleshoot that with my clients if they are experiencing post-birth control amenorrhea. Helping your cycle to regulate. How can we get it to become consistent again every 28 to 32 days? And then if you're having symptoms, identifying where they're coming from. So if you're like, well, Rachel, I went on birth control originally because my periods were really heavy. Well, your symptom, heavy periods, was not a lack of hormonal birth control symptom. It's not, oh, you're not taking hormonal birth control, which is why your periods are heavy. That symptom is trying to tell you something and get your attention. So once you get your cycle back, I tell my clients typically 2 to 3 menstrual cycles. That's when we then do functional lab testing to say, okay, your body has all the answers already. Let's find out what's going on with your hormones. Where are the imbalances? Are those symptoms that you were put on birth control for actually a result of estrogen dominance or androgen dominance or progesterone deficiency? Are you suffering with adrenal insufficiency as a result of chronic stress or lack of productive cycles for so long? So it's helping your body to remember what to do. This is an innate biological system. Your body wants to reproduce. It's about removing the roadblocks that have been in the way of your body being able to do that. And that's why I created the course, because I didn't have a roadmap. I did not have a step-by-step guide of, hey, I'm on birth control or I just came off of it. And what I want is easy, regular, pain-free periods and a way to prevent pregnancy that does not involve hormonal birth control. So I created the solution. That is the mother of all innovation, is necessity.
Absolutely. So we're going to focus on detoxification. We're going to focus on gut repair, right? We have a lot of tools for all of those things between us. And then, as you said, after a few months of our cycle returning, we'll want to do some functional lab testing. So a couple questions that are coming to my head, so I have to think they're coming to the listeners. The first is, even with this approach of focusing on detoxification and gut repair, how long might it take for a cycle to return?
Yeah. So my goal with my clients is to have their menstrual cycle return within 60 days of discontinuing birth control use. When I first went off of it the first time without a plan in place, I went 4 months with no period. And then I ended up back on birth control again. My cycle never had a chance to come back. So that's my goal with my clients, is if you stop birth control at August 1st, you should be having your first menstrual cycle by October 1st. It may be a little irregular in the beginning. It may be a heavier month and a lighter month. You may not be consistently ovulating in the beginning, which again is okay. But I tell women to expect 1 cycle of healing for every year they were on hormonal birth control. So if you took the pill for 10 years, I would say, okay, your body's going to need 10 cycles to get this crap out. It's like having to flush a toilet over and over again. And every time you flush it, things get a little bit better. Things clear out a little bit more. But a lot of people assume, oh, I'm going to stop taking this and my body's going to bounce back. That is not the case. Your hormones only get 1 chance per cycle to change. It's like clicking a dial. It clicks in the right direction 1 time every menstrual cycle. So if you only use an IUD for a year, you'll probably see a faster bounce back than a woman like me who was on the pill for a total of 12 years during that time, that it took me a good year to feel like my body had settled into a new normal. But we live in an Amazon Prime culture where things show up in 2 days or less, and God forbid it takes 3 days or more and we're pissed off about it. that we want instant gratification. And when it doesn't happen, then we just look for a quick solution. We just look for a quick fix to shortcut it. And there are no shortcuts when it comes to Mother Nature and biology. There is no silver bullet that's like, okay, Jen, just take this pill and it'll fix all your problems. That's hormonal birth control. And we know that that's not what it does.
Yeah, exactly. So then the other question that's popping up is, how do we know if the symptoms we're experiencing are a function of the symptoms of coming off of hormonal birth control versus the symptoms of what potentially led us to hormonal birth control in the first place? Because they're frankly the same list of things.
Yeah. If you think about I'll use the car analogy again. Think about the check engine light in your car. This check engine light comes on, but it doesn't tell you what it is. I don't know, maybe Teslas do. I don't think they have an engine though. But like, I have an older Honda and it has a check engine light. And it's basically like, hey, Rachel, you need to go get this looked at so somebody can figure out what is happening that has turned the check engine light on. Your body's symptoms are very similar. We only have a certain number of symptoms our body can use to get our attention. So having a heavy period, for example, that could be a result of estrogen dominance, could also be a result of endometriosis or uterine fibroids or an ovarian cyst or PCOS or androgen dominance or progesterone deficiency. But we don't have a million symptoms. Your body's not like, oh, we're only going to show you this symptom if it's estrogen related, or we're only going to show you this symptom if it's androgen related. A lot of the symptoms are similar. So the way that I approach my clients is, okay, if you were put on birth control for heavy periods, your chance of having heavy periods after you detox from hormonal birth control are higher because that was a symptom of an underlying imbalance. If you did not have heavy periods before going on birth control and you experience them after, it is more likely a sign of that birth control detoxification or some of those symptoms of that post-birth control syndrome. So it's thinking back and like, remember, for me, it was a very, very long time ago. The two symptoms I remember most were the irregular periods and the acne. Those were the root causes that I was trying to identify of like, well, what's causing the acne or what's causing the irregular periods that I never got support for, that I was able to investigate once I was finally off of the birth control, and those symptoms were still happening. So if it is a new symptom, something you had not experienced, more than likely it is an effect of the synthetic hormones from the birth control. If it was a symptom you had before going on birth control, more than likely you will have it when you come off, because birth control does not cure any underlying hormonal imbalance condition you are having. So if you had PCOS before going on birth control, you're still going to have PCOS when you come off of it. And birth control was not curing your PCOS. It was just masking it. We actually need to heal and put your PCOS into remission for you to see lasting healing. So that's my perspective on it, Jen.
Yeah, love it. And I don't want to forget all the perimenopause peeps, because bottom line is a lot of the symptoms are very similar. And a lot of the approach to our best next steps are exactly the same. Right? It's, am I experiencing this because I'm coming off of hormonal birth control? Am I experiencing these things because it's perimenopause? Right? Our approach is the same, focusing on detoxification, focusing on gut health, right?
Yeah, well, you're so right. And I'd say probably 30% of all my clients are over 40. So women that are worried about perimenopause, they're in perimenopause, they're actually already in menopause. And the reality is that at some point in your life, you will need to come off of birth control at some point. There are very, very rare cases where someone may stay on birth control past 50 years old. But once you are over 40, your risk of blood clot and stroke from birth control doubles compared to women who are under 40. So if you are in your 40s and you're still on birth control, you are at an increased risk of detrimental side effects occurring. And you may say, well, like I had my kids in my 30s. God forbid I get pregnant now. There's no way that I could deal with that. Okay, well, that's a conversation that we could have about a more permanent solution for birth control, such as a vasectomy for your partner or a tube tie for yourself. Again, I have women in their 40s, don't have any permanent birth control strategy in place, and they still use fertility awareness method and cycle tracking to either abstain from sex or use a secondary form of protection when they could become pregnant. But your body needs to go through menopause. That is a very important part of your life cycle, your hormonal life cycle, that impairing it with synthetic hormones from birth control does not do away with the symptoms. And people say, oh, well, the estrogen and in birth control is good for women that are in menopause because they're estrogen depleted. Yeah, but it's synthetic. It's not the same as the hormones that your body was making naturally. And I'm a huge fan of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. That is very different than using birth control to replace depleted hormones. But you first need functional lab testing to identify if you're a good candidate. Not everybody is a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy. People get a little apprehensive because you hear about lawsuits around increased risk of cancer. Well, we can first test your hormones to find out if you're a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy. But we can't do that if you're on birth control. If your doctor's ever said, I can't test your hormones because you're on birth control, they weren't lying to you. The results are not accurate. It's not going to give you any valuable data. And I remember I was really pissed off when I would get that answer all those years ago. And now I realize it. I'm like, oh, you didn't care to test my hormones because it didn't matter. It was all fake. It was
Right.
all fake anyways.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
So last question before our rapid fire. We talked a lot about the tools as far as nutrition and supplementation, but lifestyle is also critical in this, and I don't want to leave that out. What are a couple key lifestyle elements to think about as we're going through this detox and repair process?
Yeah, so stress is a big one. If you are super stressed out, which I think most of us are, finding ways to manage your stress, relax your nervous system, relax your adrenals, hugely important. I'm a big fan of exercise, but exercise is a form of stress. So if your body is going through this withdrawal, going through this inflammatory event, doing your hardest, highest intensity exercise, not serving you, versus gentler, easier forms of movement that get your body moving, which is really important to move your lymphatic tissue and fluid around and support your digestive system. But if you're a CrossFitter, for example, you might want to bow out of your hardest or heaviest workouts while your body is going through this. It's about being able to slow down, calm down, ease yourself into this new way of being and living and being in harmony with your cycle. And it's our fifth vital sign for a reason. That's how critically important it is to our health as women. If you're not sleeping, gotta get sleep. 80% of your body's detoxification happens when you're sleeping. So if you're someone that's running on caffeine and getting 4 hours of sleep, you have got a very, tall hill that you've got to try to climb. But if you can say, hey, getting this sleep is super important, not just for your physical and mental well-being on a daily basis. I mean, sleep deprivation impairs people as much as being drunk does when it comes to driving, is just, one tiny sliver there. But it's also when your body is doing these restorative processes. So get your sleep, stop binging Netflix, stop scrolling on your phone, go to bed 15 minutes earlier, maybe try to wake up 15 minutes later, or stop snoozing your alarm 10 times. If you need to get up at 6, set your alarm for 6 and get up at 6. Don't set your alarm for 5:30 and snooze it 10 times until 6 o'clock. Give yourself the sleep that you need. Even if you can only get a little bit more every day than you're getting right now, every minute counts when it comes to sleep. So those are just a couple high-level things.
I love it. And I think suffice to say, this is the beginning of the conversation. There are tons of tools, and you'll probably also want to revisit this as you start in this process and go, wait, what did we say about that piece? And, so use this as a tool. There are tons of freebies out there, and we'll give you guys a link in the episode notes for Rachel's Better Than Birth Control course too.
Yeah. And I do have, if you are a member of the Salad with a Side of Fries podcast with Jen, I do have a private promo code for your members, Jen, to get a discount on the course for being a member of your community.
Amazing. Yay. Okay, cool. All right. It's time for a rapid fire off-topic questions. You ready?
Let's do it. Yep.
All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Okay. Best thing I've done for my health. I'm a huge sauna and cold plunge person. I love doing hot and cold work. So once a week, I do terribly sweaty hot yoga for an hour, and then I sit in a tub of 40-degree water for 5 minutes. And it's my favorite thing that I do for my health all week. I feel incredible. I'm sweating out all those toxins, and I'm loving on my vasculature and my inflammation with the cold water. It's my best thing I've done. Flip side of that coin, speaking of Netflix, currently in a little bit of a Netflix binge right now. So I will eat my breakfast while I'm watching my show. Season 3 of Sweet Magnolias just
came out. Yeah.
Just came out. So I'm like, oh man, Jen and I in real time, this was 2 days ago. So I'm like, all right, apparently this is what I'm doing with my life right now. Totally. Of trying to sneak in episodes here and there. And I probably, speaking of sleep, I probably stayed up a little too late last night watching it because I love the binge. Netflix has gotten us into this TV binge culture that I'm a weekly release. Ew, I need every episode right now.
Exactly. I have a minor problem with television, so it's a thing. I'm working.
And I don't even have cable. Either.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
In my house that is attached to cable. It's just streaming services.
Yeah. If only that solved my television problem. Does not. All right. If you weren't a functional nutritionist and health coach and women's hormone expert, what would you do?
Oh, man. So I love animals. I have a huge, huge heart for animals. Like Jen said in my intro, I don't have any kids. I have 2 cats. And I have a deep, deep love of birds of prey, a very deep love and admiration for birds of prey. So I think if I did not do this line of work, I would really love to be in animal rescue for wild cats, exotic cats, regular domestic cats, and birds of prey with rehabilitation and release.
It's amazing.
The goal, Jen, is to be able to also finance that in my life at some point and do it all.
Oh, we're definitely doing that. This is we're doing that. All right. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Oh, okay. So outside of my area of expertise, favorite book I read recently, which is apparently kind of controversial, was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I am a Coho fan. I know some of you might be out there as well. That's what I read for fun, is fiction that is lighthearted, and Verity is pretty controversial, but I like mysteries. I like a little bit of a psychological book, and I really enjoyed it.
I know. We are the same person. I just can't. Okay. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, only one? Good Lord. I would cure infertility for women. I would say half of all of my clients have come to me because they are struggling with fertility. And it is deeply, deeply painful. I see behind the scenes of these women's lives and the emotional, mental, and physical toll, in addition to a financial burden that infertility puts on women. Tens of thousands of dollars spent to be left in heartbreak. And if you are there, I see you. My heart is going out to you right now. I'm sending you so much love. If you have dealt with loss, miscarriage, infant loss, loss of any child, my heart hurts for you. And I'm just sending you as much love as I possibly can. So if I could cure one thing, that's what it would be.
Nice. All right. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Oh my goodness. So Jen knows I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do in the world. So I think my superpower would be teleportation, because I could go anywhere in the blink of an eye. Jen and I could just, if we both had teleportation, we could just be like, hey, let's meet in Hong Kong tomorrow. And we could just be in Hong Kong, eating all the food, eating the salad, eating the fries, doing all the things. It would be incredible. So that's what I would want, because I love to travel, but the act of traveling, sitting on planes, dealing with airports is stressful.
First of all, teleport is my thing too. And it's because I think the commute is the worst part of any experience.
Absolutely. I'm getting ready to leave the country for 10 days and so excited for the trip. But I'm like, oh my God, this means I have to go to the airport and deal with security and deal with customs and checking my bag and then being in this tiny seat on the plane. And
I know.
So I'm excited for the destination, but the journey right now, maybe not so much.
All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Only one? Only one pet peeve? Oh, goodness gracious. I am a very straightforward person. It's one of the things Jen and I have in common. I tell you how it is. I do not lie. I have an opinion on everything and I will tell you what it is. And I really, really struggle with people who are maybe not insecure is the right word, but they don't want to tell you how they feel, or you have to try to guess how they feel. They might be a little quieter or a little shyer. And it's like, just tell me how you feel. Tell me what's going on. Tell me everything. I'm an open book. Be an open book too. So I think, yeah, when people like aren't honest, open communicators is a pet peeve of mine, because that's how I communicate with everybody. And like in my perfect world, that's how everybody would communicate with me, and everybody else. Like, it's like that Ryan Gosling scene in The Notebook. What do you want? Just tell me what you want.
I love it. All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Oh, man. I will bet a lot of money on this. I think we are seeing a huge awakening of women saying F hormonal birth control, F medications that negatively impact our physical and mental health. I think the next frontier is this embodied feminism of truly living in harmony with our bodies and with our menstrual cycles. I think our cycle is a superpower. And we didn't even get into, the politics or conspiracies around hormonal birth control, but it is a way to control women. I do not believe it is empowering. Like you said, women are significantly more likely to have illnesses and end up on medications than men. Women under 20 that end up on hormonal birth control are 100% more likely to end up on antidepressants. I fell into that statistic. I think we are seeing a huge revolution of women saying, I'm owning my femininity. I am owning my cycle. I am owning my bleed. I am owning my hormones. And that is the truest embodiment of myself and my feminine energy. I feel way more connected to my body now than I ever did in the 12 years that I took hormonal birth control. Knowing how it works, knowing what it needs, knowing what it likes, being more in tune with my sensuality and my sexuality, and not being afraid to talk about periods, not being afraid to talk about sex. I think there's a huge revolution happening right now. And if we can take back that power and show pharmaceutical companies and show the medical system that, like, here's what we deserve as women. Here's how we need to be treated. You need to listen to us and respect us and honor us, because we are divine beings and our cycle is incredible. We bring life into this world. So don't piss us off.
Facts.
I think there's a huge revolution happening, and I'm really, really excited to be in functional medicine and wellness at this time and being able to be a part of that.
I have chills as you were saying embodied feminism. So yes. All right, Rach, thank you again. You and I could talk for hours and hours. Tell everybody how to connect with you, all your freebies, where to find the things.
Absolutely. You can find me at all social media platforms at Real Health with Rach. My website is realhealthwithrach.com. If you either go to my website or go to my link in bio on my Instagram, I have a resource and freebie library. So if you want resources on pathways of detoxification, if you are interested in the nutrition side and you want some resources there, I mean, I've got hopefully anything and everything you could possibly need. And my feed is filled with tons of information on your cycle, hormone health, every topic under the sun that I love to talk about. Jen is going to leave you with a link to my course we talked about today, Better Than Birth Control, which is your one-stop shop for safely and effectively detoxing from hormonal birth control and getting your cycle back and feeling wonderful about it. And if you are a member of the Salad with a Side of Fries community, you have a special promo code on that course as well. So feel free, send me a DM. Let me know that you found me from the podcast. I'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you have, or just talk with you about anything that's on your mind. So I'm on Instagram mostly. So that is where you can find me as the most active version of myself on social.
Perfect. And we'll put links to everything. It'll all be there, easy for everybody to find. So that means it's time for our nutrition nugget. So on Friday, friends, we're talking about focus. Maybe you have a focus for your health, for the year, or a focus for the week, right? We're going to talk about focus. And then maybe you've also heard in the personal development circles, the idea that what we focus on expands, right? So how does that play into all of our health stuff? Tune in on Friday for that. So be sure, click the plus sign or follow button on the app where you're listening now. And then your app will give you a pop-up on Friday when the Nutrition Nugget is available for you. So As always, everybody, I'm your host, Jen Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or really all social media. I am at Jen Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I want to hear from you, your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. Anything else you want us to cover, let us know. Rach Hoeppner, the incomparable. Thank you again. All right, friends, if you are not already a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideoffries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, but most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the seriously delicious detox salad with the ginger carrot dressing and your exclusive discount on Rach's course, Better Than Birth Control. So until next week, remember, the key to coming off birth control is having a plan where you know what to do, what to expect, and you're in control. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.